I get myself into the most ridiculous projects. Hi, my name is Tom Alpel. I was given this yurt a couple of years ago by a guy who was moving out of town, and I didn't know how big it was, or if all the parts were there, or if it was even salvageable, or if it was just so rotten I'd have to haul the whole thing to the dump. One of the Plywood Yurt platforms at our Green University Wilderness Survival Camp became available, so I decided to set it up and see what we've got. It was challenging to set up the walls since the panels slope outward and some of them were falling apart, but we finally got them to stand up and screwed down to the base, and then I applied metal banding around the top to hold the bowl together. After that, it was pretty stable, and despite my initial fears, it did not come crashing to the ground. The yurt came with 26 rafters and was pre-notched for 26 more, so I doubled them up, then added in a 1/4 inch plywood for the roof, and that was thin enough to be flexible to follow the curvature of the roof. This project really broke all of the cardinal rules of construction. Don't build with crazy angles, don't build something that is temporary, that isn't built to last, and don't build in a potential hazard zone. And so here this yurt, it's a 26-sided yurt with a 13-sided roof, and it's built out of plywood that's already, kind of coming apart. And it's also, we're in the floodplain or an inch above the floodplain. So I realize it's temporary, but it's also a perfect shelter for our wilderness survival camp. We have kind of a round aesthetic with all of our buildings, so wanted to keep in tune with that. I painted the plywood roof to provide temporary protection from the weather, and I had previously used a sawzall to trim the 18-foot diameter plywood platform down to match the 14-foot diameter plywood yurt. There were a couple broken windows in the cupola, so I replaced those with plexiglass, and my partner Linda replaced the screens in the wall windows with plexiglass as well. The ceiling looks really cool. I am really excited about the way this project is coming together. The yurt had come with a metal support pole, but I substituted a juniper pole that I liked better and which provided more support for the fragile cupola. I tinkered with the project between intermittent storms through February and March. The previous yurt had been 18 feet in diameter, while the new one was only 14 feet in diameter, and I had placed it in the center platform, then trimmed off the plywood around it. Later I came back with all of these scraps and pieced them together to make this crazy looking floor, which was really just to double it up and take the bounce out of it to make it more solid underfoot. After that, I left the project alone for the summer and did not return to it until fall. A local church had replaced their old steel roof with new asphalt shingles, and so I was given enough steel roofing to do this project and several others at camp. I was helped by Ray, one of my students at Green University, and after cutting the steel roofing panels, we went back and added a thin layer of fiberglass insulation as a thermal break between the wood and the steel. The pieces were left a little bit long so that we could come back and trim the edge afterwards. The roof was pretty thin and bouncy with just 1/4 inch plywood on top of 2x2 rafters, but the more stuff we screwed to it, the stronger it got. We added valley flashing at the base between each set of roof panels, then came back with ridgetop flashing to cover the joint the rest of the way up. For maximum structural integrity while we were working on the roof, we completed as much as we could before stopping to cut a hole through the roof to install the chimney and the wood stove. Installing the blade backwards in the skill saw makes an incredibly effective tool for cutting steel roofing. Ray wanted to help out with the project, partly to learn some basic construction skills, but also because she was excited about having a new structure at camp for the winter. After framing out the hole for the chimney, we went back and completed the steel roofing, then drilled holes up underneath at each of the corner points and connected the dots to make a line to trim the steel roofing all the way around. The fact that the walls slope outwards give a sense of spaciousness to the otherwise very small yurt. At this point, it feels nice and solid from floor to ceiling, and thanks so much to Austin for donating the wood stove to help keep it warm. We sandwiched a thin piece of fiberglass insulation between 2 sheets of valley flashing, to make a slight thermal break between the inside and the outside around the chimney. I like to do one project each time I come to camp, and we tinkered around with the yurt between snowstorms through October and November. I happened to be there taking pictures one day of the snow on the roof when I caught it just at the moment it all came crashing down. We installed a reflector behind the wood stove with a gap to allow air to rise up and keep the wood cool. It was a real thrill to light our inaugural housewarming fire. When the weather warmed up again, we dug a trench to run a buried cable from the power pole over to the yurt, which rose up through conduit before coming indoors. And then Colin, another one of my students, assisted with wiring outlets and switches inside the building, plus we installed some nice light fixtures for crafting. I finally got around to washing those dirty plywood panels, and then got to apply a coat of paint, which really brought the structure to life and made it so beautiful. All this hard work is really paying off. And finally, our last major project on the yurt was to install a metal skirt to prevent the wind from blowing underneath the structure, as well as to help keep rodents out. We had just enough valley flashing to do the job by cutting it in half and then burying it about an inch or two below ground. We hauled in a pickup load of dirt from a nearby house construction project and put it around the yurt to slope the ground away just a little bit. We also installed internet in the building, and now we have a beautiful and warm library and crafting space that our students can use through the long cold winter and enjoy crafting even during the short dark days. There's always something cool happening inside. Let's go on in and see what's going on today. Here we have Eric is working on a beautiful buckskin vest. They have been tanning up a mountain of hides over the winter, and now he's actually has the chance to make some beautiful clothing from that. Eric is sewing with buckskin thong and doing some beautiful stitching work. And over here we have Mary tanning a sheepskin, which she had butchered the sheep just a few days before. So it is beautiful to see that coming along. Come join us and see what beautiful things you can create at Green University.